Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic chat show, Guest of the Week, coming to you from Sharjah TV. As always, I'm your host, Ismail Bullock. And today we were going to continue a topic that we had on a previous episode, which was how to deal with anger. We discussed various topics of what is anger, what are the various forms of anger, and we also delved into some of the ways to deal with anger, and we gave examples from the Quran and from the Sunnah on how to deal with this. But as this topic is something that really deserves more than one episode, we'll continue it today, inshallah, in this episode. And again, with me to discuss this is brother Muhammad Khan. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
So, mashallah, last episode we had a nice introduction. We started mentioning some of the reasons and some of the things that can lead to anger and some of the dangers that anger can happen. We mentioned that people's relationships, people's lives can even end just because someone didn't control their anger. Today, inshallah, we're going to kind of elaborate more as well on that subject.
Yeah, and as you rightly said, that this topic actually requires more elaboration, and definitely because, as discussed earlier, this is a core skill which is required by every Muslim to master, basically. And like our purpose is, where we get this consciousness. Of course, we are not saying no one is going to get angry, no one will be in that testing moment, including us. It's a journey, and we have to adopt this mentality. We have to, develop this change in ourselves, this shift of focus, this change in thinking, and then, inshallah, we strive to, follow the guidelines of the Prophet ﷺ, and the character traits mentioned in the Quran about those who deal with anger properly. So we can start this episode, where we'll be inshallah discussing few solutions by mentioning this hadith, which also shows us, that how important this topic is. Once a man said to the Prophet ﷺ, "Advise me." He came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked for advice. He said, "Advise me." The Prophet ﷺ told him, "Do not become angry." Then the man repeated his request several times, asking, "Advise me." And the Prophet ﷺ repeated it several times, "Do not become angry, do not become angry." And this is reported by Bukhari in Fath al-Bari. So here we come to know that a person, he is coming to the Prophet ﷺ for advice, and the advice which the Prophet ﷺ gave him is, do not become angry. Now here, the point for us to understand are few. Number one, that here the Prophet ﷺ is trying to explain, not that the person will never experience anger, but he is telling him not to act upon it, not to act on it. So a person might feel, angry, maybe on his relative, on his children, on his wife, partner, colleague, boss, but to act upon it is something which here the Prophet ﷺ is asking the man to stop from. That don't act on your angry behavior. Don't express it out. Do not act upon it. On the other hand, it also shows us the importance that acting upon it is can cause a lot of problems and destruction. Where a person, when he's angry, he may do injustice. He may not deal justly with the people in the rage of anger. A person, as we discussed earlier, may harm the other person. Firstly, he's harming himself, but he may harm the other person physically. If not physically, people think, I don't use my hands, I didn't hit the other person. But the scar of the tongue is more severe. The person abuses, the person uses bad language. Even if not bad language, the person might accuse the other person of something where it leaves, just in the rage of anger, and it leaves the other person, sad and depressed, and relationships break. So many times, just in the rage of anger, and because of false information, husband accuses his wife, wife accuses her husband, and so on and so forth. A lot of evil happens when a person is not controlled. He does not control his behavior, then he will face a lot of problems. So here the Prophet ﷺ's beautiful advice is that do not become angry. We are not supposed to immediately overreact upon our anger, because like logically speaking, it's extremely easy to overreact or immediately react on a situation. But it takes courage, it takes intelligence, it takes some efforts and strength to evaluate the situation, to look at it, and then respond appropriately. This is something, and we see there are some people who are hasty, and there's also one hadith, the mafhum of which is that haste is from shaitan. Haste is from shaitan. So some people, they just immediately, something is told to them and they overreact upon it, whether in family or friends. A person has to control if he sees, yes, it is something related to his anger, related to his frustration, and he has to give it more attention and be more controlled. Now, earlier we mentioned that there could be situations in one's own family or in one's own surrounding, because of which a person has some of the traits of frustration and anger. But again, here, number one thing we have to remember to solve this problem and to adopt a better personality is not to play the blame game. Not to play the blame game and take responsibility of our own selves. There are many people, they say, I become angry because of this person. I became angry because of my my friend or my boss. I become angry because of my boss, or I become angry because whenever I see this person, or he always triggers. This is never justified. This is something which is never justified, where we blame others for our behavior. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold us responsible for our behavior. So this is point number one and very essential, that irrespective, because Allah created us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge us, our actions. So we cannot make this excuse just because he triggered it, so I'm getting angry and it's justified. First thing, take responsibility of yourself, and there's no blaming game. Point number two is that not to travel in the past. So a lot of time people, they recollect memories when it comes to some relations. They recollect memories that this person, 5 years ago he told me this, 2 years ago he behaved with me in such a manner, and maybe 10 years ago he took my thing unjustly. This is not how a believer lives his life. We live in the present, and whatever is past, we forgive others and then we move on. We have to see the person how he is now. Not to say that a person is not cautious, of course, if there's anyone who is harming us or someone who inflicts harm upon us. Yeah, as a believer, the Prophet ﷺ said, you will not get bitten twice in the same hole. So we don't, like if someone who is not to be trusted, then we take our precautions. But then again, to just sit on this and to harm ourselves, I don't know, he did with me in the past and he did that with me in the past. This is something which we have to let it go, to release this negativity from ourselves. Otherwise, we'll always have this frustration and negativity regarding others, and that could also come out on others. So many times it happens. A person is angry on his colleague at workplace, but where does that anger come out? At home, with the wife, or with his mother, or he might be angry with his friend in university, and then he comes and releases that anger upon his mother, which is haram, firstly, not justified. Secondly, it's pure injustice on the person's part, where one thing comes out the other place. So therefore, there's no traveling in the past, and we don't blame others for our behavior. We also see that there are a lot of changes which happens when a person is in this state of anger. So anger is basically a state, which we enter, and some of the experts, they say that it's approximately, the first, as the anger triggers in, it's about, the first thing which lasts is about 2.5 minutes. So till 2.5 minutes, there is a possibility that the person can express or show or do anything in his anger. So one has to control himself in that period. But biologically, we see that the stress levels increase. and there is physical weakness, the thinking capacity gets blocked. And there are other psychological harms as well, which happens, like the person starts to develop hatred and jealousy. So we see it's not just limited to one thing, like a person is angry on the other person. Now that will make him develop jealousy, hatred. Now these are other emotions and other wrong things in itself, but then because of anger, these things are developed in the person. For the other, it could be jealousy, hatred, doing injustice, harming the other person, and so on and so forth, using foul language, abusing the other person, accusing the other person. And these are all things which can be developed if anger is not controlled. Another aspect is wrong decision making. So a lot of time, that's why it's said that one should never take a decision when he's extremely happy or he's extremely angry. A person should not take a decision or decide, because sometimes it happens. Person is overjoyed, he's extremely happy, and then he says, okay, I will do this, I will do that, I will give you this, I will give you that. And even in terms of making a vow, as we know, it's not encouraged in Islam to make a vow. That sometimes it's haram and sometimes it's discouraged, that you don't make a vow that, okay, he's super excited and then he says, okay, I will do maybe 2-3 hajj, I will go to umrah 10 times, or I will pray 100 nawafil. Just amongst the permissible vows, he makes that, which is discouraged, but then he may end up, in probably overjoyed, overexcited. Similarly, in anger, a person might say, I will not do this, and I would, like, even the aspect of husband-wife relationship, where we know Surah Mujadila was revealed about that, where one of the persons, he told to his wife that you are like my mother. He did zihar, and that is something which was prohibited, and he did it in the rage of anger, because he wanted to. That's how they used to humiliate the other person, by telling this, that I don't like you, and it's all in the rage of anger. So here we see extreme anger and extreme joy. Again, Islam gives us a middle path. It doesn't say that don't be happy or don't get angry, but it channelizes. Similarly, don't get extremely angry nor extremely overjoyed and then take decisions which later on we might regret.
And so many decisions we see are like that, right? They're taken on the spur of the moment because the person's angry. He takes a decision, and afterwards he realizes, like, what a bad decision this was. And this can be with, like you said, with marriage. I mean, how many divorces happen, like we mentioned in the last episode, because the person got angry. Okay, we do know Islamically, if the person was so angry that he's out of control of his senses, that kind of rage, then maybe the divorce, is in that case is not valid. But in most cases, it's valid, because most of the time they don't get to that angry level where they're out of control. They don't know what they're doing. So this is a big problem. And like I said, it can be with work, can be with your friends, with your family, many things in life. Could be like road rage. We see these cases of road rage. The person drove in front of the person, he gets out, he wants to fight the guy, and can lead to people, many, many problems, all because of they took, like you said, a decision based upon anger without thinking about it. And we've got to go for a break now, but we'll continue, inshallah, after the break. Join us, inshallah, after this break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Just before the break, what came to my mind as well is, we mentioned about making these decisions at the spur of the moment when you're angry. And it reminded me that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if you're standing, you should sit. And if you're sitting, you should lie down to control the anger. So if you're angry and you sit down, maybe hopefully you'll kind of relax a bit. If you're sitting down, you become really angry. Maybe you lie down to your side. These things. So before you act upon it, taking these steps to try and control the anger, and that's what many people don't do.
That's right. Again, like when we look at the solutions, so we see that it's extremely important, like on a daily basis, where we are dealing with people, we are dealing with situations, we are in an environment. It's essential for us to look at these things and assess them, that okay, these are the things which triggers my anger. For example, there are many people who daily travel, long hours for work, and they daily get angry in traffic. They daily are abusing. There's so much traffic. Then, when we tell our brains that, okay, I will get traffic at this time, so what am I supposed to do? Daily just become negative, daily take out my rage. And on whom? We might, people are banging the steering, people are, doing crazy things in the car where they know they cannot do anything. So here, a composed personality is required, where we train our brains, okay, I will get traffic at this time. That's understood. Okay, what am I supposed to do at that time? Maybe, put some Quran and listen to the Quran, listen to a good lecture. If one has hands-free, he can, in that time call his relatives, speak to them. Where people complain, I don't have time to call my relatives. He's stuck in the traffic, do that. There are so many things a person can do. It's just the shift of mind, the shift of focus. Or else he can just sit there for, driving for 2 hours, and he can just be frustrated and angry. Anyone calls him, he shows his anger. Anyone is, then he cuts, and then that's another issue. He might end up in an accident or whatnot. So these are important, that, what are the triggers? What triggers my anger? Is it that, some people, they are unable to, deal with a specific person? So then he should, sit and think, yeah, this person, he's always in a very raged mode, so I need to maybe calm down. Because see, again, here, this is a very important aspect of emphasis, that anything, any change, any control, any behavioral change, we have to always start with us. That's what is required. We cannot change the world, we cannot change the environment. At a specific time, we cannot change the traffic, we cannot change how the other person thinks. But what I can change is myself. I can change how I think and how I deal with myself. Because of the other person, other person comes, he shouts at me, he tells me something, that you are this, you are that, and then he goes. Now he's eating his pizza, he's enjoying himself, and now I'm here for 5 hours, in that rage, angry, frustrated, taking out my anger on my friends and family. And that person is enjoying. It's his character, it's his behavior. So this is what we have to understand, that we have to make the change. It's myself who has to have a positive thinking, and don't think that I will be able to change everyone. Yeah, of course, nasiha, da'wah, everything has its place. But then start off with our own thinking and our own understanding. Then there are also some people who are very nitty-gritty about things. People want everything to be perfect, whereas perfection, this belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will make mistakes, we will have these imperfections, and we have to deal with that. It could be from our relatives, from our colleagues. There could be things where they fall short on, like sometimes our spouses, they're not in that state, they may make some mistakes. Sometimes the children are not, they are extremely making noise, or the food is not cooked well. So we must understand that these things happen, and we don't have to get always angry upon this aspect, where we have to give some space to others for our better well-being. It doesn't make sense where we always get angry on employees, family members, relatives. That will only tarnish our mental well-being. Taunting and sarcasm. This is also something which leads to anger. So some people have this character where they taunt others. They may not express the anger like screaming or shouting, but they will be sarcastic. They will taunt the other person. They will say things which the other person understands, but it's like a taunt and sarcasm. And again, this is not from not Islamic, because Allah mentioned in the Quran, "Qulu qawlan sadida," that speak the true word. We have to convey things straightforward, rather than taunting and sarcasm, which also leads to anger and this broken relationships. Now, coming to the aspect, we can see there are some therapies, of course not like as in we're not giving some prescription, but these are things which can be done to have a control and a better character when it comes to anger. And there are experts which suggest that in a body there is a hormone which is called as endorphins. So once these endorphins are released, these hormones are for basically it acts in our brain to reduce the stress and improve our moods. And how are these released? Subhanallah, it's released through some amount of pain and stress. So what the experts, they say that if a person, he generally exercises or walks or maybe completes about 10,000 steps in a day, then these endorphins are released where his mood, his mental composure, this is in a better state. We see a lot of time, there are people who have like sedentary lifestyle. They don't move, they don't do exercise, they don't have this healthy lifestyle, healthy eating junk, and then having a sedentary lifestyle. This adds on to a person's mental well-being, a person's state of anger and frustration. Whereas a person who is releasing these endorphins, this is something which, and they also say, apart from exercise, it is something where a person meditates. Now, subhanAllah, when we come to the aspect of Islam, there is no better thing to do than salah, where we focus, we develop this khushu, we stand in awe and fear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we have this focused mind. Because nowadays we see a lot of people, they come with that meditation, me time, just have some time, space for yourself and all of this stuff, and they try to show benefits and whatnot. But subhanAllah, when we look at the aspect of Islam, we have 5 daily prayers, and if these are done with khushu', with a proper way how the Prophet ﷺ told us, then this has a lot of benefits on our mental well-being also, because here we stand without arrogance, without this show and pride, and we stand with humbleness, with humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking His reward, and this has a lot of benefits. Another aspect is to rectify our thought process. Now this is something where we do this through our behavioral analysis, like we rectify our thought process, thinking good about the other person. And this is also a part of which is told to us in Islam, that we have husn zan first about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then we have husn zan about others. So if the other person is in a situation, maybe he's not behaving very well with us, we give him the husn zan that he could be having some problems. It's not because of me. So what happens is, say 2 friends, they meet. The other person might be having some problem, some other problem, financial problem, some emotional problem, and then he is not behaving well with the other person. The other person starts fighting that we met and you were not behaving, you were not smiling, and this and that. So we have to give husn zan to the other person that he spoke in that manner, or he told me something. It could be that he has some problem, or he's mistaken, there's some miscommunication. So we have to give this benefit of doubt to the other person, and this is subhanAllah extremely beneficial when it comes to our mental well-being and controlling our anger, because here what we are doing is we are just releasing ourselves from the negativity, rather than thinking, this person, he did this to me because of this, and he thinks bad about me, and he speaks ill behind my back and whatnot. We make like 100 stories in our mind without any base, without any evidence. So this is again to control our behavior, frustration and anger. We rectify our thought process about the other person. Another point is to communicate the problem. Again, this comes down to a very important thing, that people don't communicate, and this again differs from different cultures, different communities, because I've seen in different communities, in some communities, if the person tells no, if he says no, then that's considered to be like a cause for like destruction. If a person is invited in a place and he says, no, I cannot come, I have something else, this is considered to be really bad. How can and which is not correct, because we see that to say no appropriately, or if there is a problem, to communicate that. This is extremely essential. In some communities, the children, they are unable to communicate the problem to their parents. Similarly, partners, they are unable to communicate, and then the problem causes. One is thinking something, the other is thinking. And it has to be, if both the parties, husband and wife, partners, parents and children, they have this positivity and they bring the issue, they discuss it with an open mind, not assuming, having husn zan, not in the rage of anger, then inshallah things will go smooth. But it's that a person keeps it to himself, not bringing the problem, and then it explodes just all of a sudden. So here communication is the key, whether it's children, friends, colleagues. Sometimes the manager hasn't communicated what he wants from the employees, and then he becomes angry. They are not getting the targets, they are not fulfilling the targets. You must communicate it to them, then only they will come to know. Sometimes the person might be in his own mind, he does things in his own way. So here communication, we see that is a huge factor which plays a big role in disputes and fights, and one or both of them getting angry.
And in fact, as we always mention, when you go back into the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sunnah, we will also find many examples of how to communicate effectively, patiently, gently, affectionately, whatever it may be. We find so many examples of the Prophet ﷺ and how he spoke to certain individuals in certain situations. We can learn from that and implement that in our lives again. But are we looking there? Are we looking for the guidance? Sometimes we're not, right? That's the problem.
That's right. Now, if we come to the moment of anger, now this is again perhaps the highlight, where the person is actually in the moment of anger, in that rage of anger, which can happen to any of us. No one is free from that, and this is what we want to re-emphasize, that anyone can be in that situation, and we must adopt this reality. The Prophet ﷺ, he saw two people in the rage of anger, and then he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, this is in Bukhari, I know a word, the Prophet ﷺ said, I know a word which if he were to say it, what he feels would go away.
Just going to hold you on that point because I know we need some time for this, and we've come to the time for a break. Join us inshallah after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Just before the break, you mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ said there is a word, and you're about to explain that.
Yes, so the Prophet ﷺ said, if he said this word, what he feels will go away, and that is A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. This is something which has to be done in the moment of anger. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. That we seek refuge with Allah from shaitan. Now this, when we hold here and we look at this aspect, when two people are fighting, or when one person is angry upon the other, if he thinks about this, that he mentions Allah, he seeks refuge in Allah from shaitan, this has a big impact. On the other hand, one also has to remind the other person, so this breaks the flow where two people are fighting, abusing, accusing, and then this A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. The Prophet ﷺ is telling what he feels, the anger, the frustration towards the other person, this will go away. Here we have to start with this. People try to do other things, this and that, but here the Prophet ﷺ, because we know the therapies, the solutions which he gave is good for us when it comes to physically, spiritually, mentally, psychologically, everything put in that, all aspects, because whatever he's conveying from our Creator. It's nothing by himself. So this is one of the things, when in the moment of anger, we have to always remember this and remind the other person, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Not that, if a person reminds us, that's worse. Sometimes people remind the other people and they say, no, this is required for you. You tell this, and I'm okay, and I'm right, and I'm not. This is what generally, shouldn't be done. When a person reminds you of like a solution, a a sign of humbleness is that the person adopts it and then he practices that. The Prophet ﷺ also said, if a man gets angry and says, I seek refuge with Allah, his anger will go away. This is in Jami Saghir, hadith number 695. If a person, he gets angry and he seeks refuge in Allah, his anger will go away. Another aspect of managing anger, now this is in the moment of anger. First is one says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Second is to keep silent in that moment. To keep, and we know it's difficult. It's difficult, when the person is accused or the person, his argument is weakening, he's unable to make his point. It's difficult. The person rather starts showing more anger. But the Prophet ﷺ said, if any of you becomes angry, let him keep silent. And subhanAllah, this we see, if just an example of husband and wife dispute, if one person keeps silent, then we see that it will not escalate. In fact, if the person is, sane, he himself will feel bad to keep on shouting on a person who's silent. This is, naturally in us, like our psychology will work in a way where a person is silent, like I don't want to, keep bashing him because he's gone silent, khalas. Let me stop here. The other person will think. So this is again a beautiful solution. That one person goes silent. The problem is that one person tries to prove his point, then the other person, then accusations and fights, and the anger just keeps escalating. One person keeps quiet, we have the problem solved then and there itself. Another aspect is, as you rightly said, postural change, where from the Sunnah we come to know, if a person is standing, he should sit down. If he's sitting, he should lie down. And this was, I believe, the case in one of the Sahabi, where once something happened where he was outside, and something happened where the other person made him angry. So this Sahabi, he was seen that he just lied down over there. He lied down. So they asked him, what are you doing? So he said, this is from the Sunnah, where if a person feels angry, he lies down. And there's also one hadith from the scholars that once there was a person, he was a scholar, and he had a slave. So by mistake, the slave did something which made him angry. So here the slave reminded the person that, remember the ayah, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, that those who swallow their anger. And subhanAllah, this we come to, a slave girl is advising the other person that this is the words of the Quran, so please implement on that. We see what is our situation, our case, where the person keeps reminding, and then we are just raging more in anger, and we try to discard the other person. We think, the problem is we think winning the argument is success, which is not the case. In fact, it's the contrary. The Prophet ﷺ said, I guarantee a house in paradise for the one who, even if he's right, he does not argue. And here we see this is blocking the bigger problem, because the moment argumentation starts in an unhealthy way, then that escalates to anger and more problems. So here we see another solution is that one can, as we said, change his posture, move away from the place, and what he can say is, we'll perhaps discuss this later on. And this is perfectly fine. This is one of the solutions. But what happens is, in a lot of cultures and community, if the person moves out, and that's like, considered to be more bad, and the person is moving out, whereas that's a solution, because if they stay there, on each other, then that's going to cause more problems. So this is good where a person, if he is in the rage of anger, he moves out for time out, as they say in these psychological therapies, they say time out. You move out from there. Later on, we'll discuss that problem, when we are not angry. Let's sit and discuss, okay, this was my mistake, your mistake, what's the case? But at that moment, if the issue has been escalated, then move out from that place. Making wudu, drinking water, these are also effective ways where a person can calm down his anger, because again, now he is like blocking the problem, he's blocking the issue then and there itself. He's trying to calm down his anger through drinking water, making wudu, shift of focus. This is the shift of focus from that moment. Now he's out of that moment. Now he can think in a better way. Okay, was it my mistake? Was it his mistake? Did I say something wrong? And this will save a lot of issues by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is also one thing which the scholars, they say, look at yourself in the mirror at that moment, and then you will realize how ugly it is. Nowadays we have phones, camera phones. One can open his phone, look at himself, how ugly that is. And subhanAllah, this is also understood when we see others. Sometimes when we see others fighting like in an ugly manner, this is also a type of nasiha for us, where we understand, subhanAllah, we think at that time, I am not supposed to do like this, I must not be in this situation, I should not show this behavior. We understand when we look at ourselves or others in that rage of anger, because it's ugly, it's not praiseworthy, it's not something which is which we aim for. So this is again something where we can control our anger in the moment of anger, which actually causes a lot of issues. Now, when we look at the psychological aspect, we discussed the hadith earlier that controlling anger is strength. And this is what we believe in, and this is what we must remind ourselves again and again, that anger is not strength, it's not masculinity, it's not authority, it's not something praiseworthy. Rather, controlling that and channelizing it and having like a composed behavior, this is strength. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, told his Sahaba, that it's not, strength is not that you overpower the other person or defeat him. Rather, strength is controlling your anger when you become angry. Another psychological therapy we can say is to forgive. Forgive the other person. And this is again a beautiful trait mentioned in the Quran, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, that they forgive people. And this again requires courage. It's not easy, to forgive the other person whom we know, yes, he has wronged for that case. And when we look at the example of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, when his daughter, his beloved daughter, who is the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, Aisha radiallahu anha, when the whole issue of accusation happened, one of the persons whom Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu used to give wages to, he used to support him, he used to give him money, basically he was taking care of his financial and everything. He was also involved in that accusation. Now, if we can imagine a person accusing our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, that's like the limits, we will be in and in some cases it's also justified to become angry on a person who is trying to tarnish the image of our women folk. It's justified. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he revealed the verses, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he had stopped giving him wages because he accused my daughter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verses that they forgive. They have this attribute of forgiveness. Subhanallah, Abu Bakr forgave him and he started his wages again. This is something which we always should remember. If we want Allah to forgive us, we should forgive others. Now we see so many relationships, people have grudges against their siblings, children, uncles, aunts, grandparents, because of property issues, because of this, because of that, because he took my this, he took my that. So many issues, and we are not willing to forgive the other person. So forgive and forget. We forgive the other person, and this is something which is encouraged in the Quran, in the Sunnah, and this is one of the therapies which we can adopt. Now, overcoming unrealistic expectations. This is also one of the psychological therapies we can see, that not to have much expectations from other people. Like when we do good to someone, we do it for the sake of Allah. relatives, family, friends, whatever good we do, not thinking in return the other person will not show anger or he will not show any type of other behavior. So what happens is people do good and they expect good from the other person, which is not always the case. We do good for the sake of Allah and then we expect a reward from Allah. If the other person gives us good, well and fine. If not, still we are okay because we did it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we remember the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam here, because this issue happens a lot amongst the relatives and these fights happen a lot amongst the relatives. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about being good to relatives. So he explained that one should be good with them even when they are bad with you, even when they are not good with us.
Actually, in fact, the Prophet ﷺ, he said to them, do you know who the person is who is the al-wasil, the one who keeps family ties? And then the Prophet ﷺ said that he is that person is the person who keeps in contact with those who cut them off. So it's not the person it's very easy to, like, you have a brother or cousin or someone who's very friendly with you. That's a very easy relationship. But what's hard is you keep in contact with those people who are harsh with you. They close the door in your face. They cut you off. They say, I don't want to know you. Why do you keep saying hi? Why do you keep greeting me? But he continues to do so. This is the real person who keeps the family ties.
That's right. Because it's, as you said, it's very easy. Someone is bringing us gifts. Someone is inviting us dinner and lunch. It's very easy to be forgiving and to be nice with them. But yeah, the struggle comes when we have these rigid type of relatives who are not behaving well with us. But how do we do it? Because it's for the sake of Allah. The moment we start expecting a good behavior from them, then we will never be able to maintain that relationship. And last but not the least, the focus on big matters is something which will help us overcome these problems. So the Sahaba, they were not focused on these petty issues, because you did this, you did that, so I'm not going to talk to you, I'm not going to do this. They were focused on the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ's focus was the hereafter. Therefore, they never made issues, small issues, big. They never showed or expressed anger for their personal things. It's because their focus was the hereafter, and that made their personality calm and composed, where they could deal with their anger appropriately in situations.
Jazakallah khair for sharing that with us. And again, for the viewers, some great tips to take away and try to implement, inshallah. Until the same time, same place, inshallah, next week, I leave you as always with the greetings of Islam, the greetings of peace. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.